Today we're going to check out some engine air scoops that should help keep your engine bay cool while you're driving. So let's go check it out in this video. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and like I said, we are going to be checking out something that's going to help keep your engine bay cool. Whether you have a C8 Stingray, a Z06 like I do, or an ERAY, any kind of C8 variant that you have. It actually comes from dynamiccaps.com, which they call these dynamic ducts, and they are exactly what you imagine. They are ducts that you can put on the underside of your C8 that bolt up and basically redirect flow from underneath the C8 and basically redirect it into the engine bay. These have actually been making waves recently because of a certain GM version that does the same thing, that bolts onto the underside of the car. And it was only really seen on European models, but it's actually kind of trickled its way back to the US because it has shown some significant engine cooling effects, much better than just, without it. So the version I have here is from Dynamic Ducts, and they've actually been pretty hard to come by, especially like the OEM version. So you're starting to see it come out in the aftermarket region. Some are made out of metal. This one here is actually made out of 3D printing, which is actually pretty impressive. I'm actually familiar with 3D printing as an engineer myself, so I actually am kind of impressed that this has kind of made its waves into the market as a 3D printed version. Now, this 3D printed version is the XL version from dynamiccaps.com, and it is exactly that. It's got a little bit of a larger opening here that allows for more airflow to come in and be redirected into that engine bay. So we're gonna actually be doing a little bit of testing. I've already gone and checked what the engine temperature is like, driving it around for like about 30 minutes on the highway, getting like some initial readings using my OBD reader that I have. And so we're gonna do some testing afterwards after getting this installed onto my C8 Z06 and see where the temperatures kind of sit. Now, if you are interested in these sell for about 190 bucks, but I do have a discount code that you can potentially use, save yourself a little bit of money should you choose to buy this. I know there's other YouTubers that I've actually been talking to, like where certain versions work and other versions don't work. We're gonna test out to see how well this one effectively works. Now, again, this is 3D printed, so it's not made out of metal, and it does have this mesh in here, which I kind of like the mesh look here in regards to how it will function, because with it being so low to the ground, you're bound to have rocks that are gonna get spit right into this air duct. You don't want any kind of rocks or anything like that just kind of pinging this duct and going into your engine bay. So having this mesh here, I think is gonna be a good thing. It is going to, I'm gonna already tell you right now, having the mesh there is going to reduce the effectiveness, but with this XL version that is a little bit wider, I think that's gonna allow for a little bit of give and take where you're still getting airflow coming in, but at the same time, you're also having that protection go on there. And again, this is a quick bolt-on thing where it's literally 2 bolts that are gonna be undone from the bottom. You install this here, reinstall those bolts in, and it's done. And you just do it on both sides. So it's supposed to take around 15-20 minutes or so, depending on the tools that you have. I did already go in and just start looking at the bolts that need to be taken. Those bolts are E16 Torx bolts that you need to use, that you need to undo. So they're very low profile, so you definitely want to make sure you have E16 torque sockets to go with it. Don't use just a hex socket. You'll strip out those bolts, and then you're gonna really be in a hard time, because they are, if it's anything like my C8 Z06, they were torqued pretty harsh. They were torqued pretty well that I had to use a breaker bar in order to be able to get through and untorque them. And also, in theory, you can definitely install these without having to get your C8 Z06 on a lift. I already got in there. You have just enough room. It will be more comfortable if you get the car lifted. So if you do have a lift or maybe a jack stand or whatnot, you can get away with it a little bit easier. But if you are really in a pinch and you just want to do it in your garage and you don't have all the tools except your except your actual proper socket and all that stuff, you can in theory do this all at home by yourself. And overall, the quality on these 3D printed parts are pretty good. I would say this is a solid B+. The only thing I would say is that you have certain areas that it looks like a very 3D printed part. You don't have it that it's like flush finish kind of deal, but In general though, I mean, it looks really good. It's really solid. It's not gonna break on you. I mean, I'm putting some decent force on this right where this crevice would be, which would be the weakest part on this 3D printed part, and it is rock solid. It's not really going anywhere. So, and this part is annealed, which means that they basically bake it after they've already 3D printed. So it gives it extra strength so that it's not just gonna fall apart. It's not gonna be warped by any kind of heating because of where it's located. And because of the material that it's made out of, it's not going to like warp either as well. It should be able to handle all the heating that's going on here. Again, if you're interested in this part, I have a discount code that you can use with it to save yourself a little bit of money, so you can get it at a little bit of a cheaper price. But yeah, that being said, I'm pretty excited to try this out on my C8 Corvette. The C8s, in general, they run hot. And this is the kind of thing that is going to be able to improve your engine temperature in regards to keeping it lower, especially when you're on the highway or doing any kind of like spirited driving. And in theory, this is also going to keep your rear trunk a little bit cooler. But yeah, I'm excited to try this out. So let's go ahead, get these installed on the C8 Z06 and go take a quick drive and see how they do. Alrighty, so we have installed the dynamic ducts onto the C8 Z06. It's actually the next day, mostly because I wanted to try to get as even of a comparison compared to the baseline that I did without the ducts installed. So it's actually about the same time in the morning as it was yesterday when I did the initial baseline test, and about the same temperature. It's actually about 45 degrees outside. I know it says right now on my dash screen it's 54. That's because the car has just been in the garage, so it's actually a little bit warmer in the garage. But I can promise you that it is actually about 45 degrees outside, and you can see the temperature is already dropping on my little dash kind of deal. But I have my OBD reader here all set up and ready to go. It's live monitoring my engine coolant temperature and my engine oil temperature. So I have it collecting both information, and it's the same information I had gotten now. And it's the same information I had gotten on my baseline. Now for my baseline, I captured recordings while I was on the highway, which is going to be where any kind of air duct system is going to be the most effective. So it'd be the most difference that you would see is basically on the highway. And while I was on the highway, which is what we're driving to right now, I was able to get the I was able to show my engine coolant temperature to be a standard around 169 degrees. That's usually where it likes to sit if I'm just kind of cruising in this low temperature. Like if I'm just kind of cruising and the temperature outside is pretty cool, like 45-50 degrees, that's usually the standard temperature that I was seeing. And then the engine oil temperature was around 152 during that same baseline test on the highway again. So right now we're just kind of driving to the highway and letting the C8 Z06 kind of warm up to do this actual reading that we're gonna do. So we're about 5 minutes out from the highway, so the engine will get nice. So the engine should get nice and warm by that time, and be at its optimal operating temperature of wherever it's going to sit with the dynamic ducts installed and everything. So let's get headed over to the highway, and then we'll be able to get some actual good readings. Alright guys, so we have been driving on the highway for a few minutes now, and so it's kind of interesting. So the engine coolant temperature is about 170 degrees, so like 169. So like how I had the baseline at 169, it really is showing not any kind of difference, like 172, 170 in regards to the engine coolant temperature. So there's not really actually any difference in regards to the engine coolant temperature, but the engine oil temperature is significantly less. It's at 136 degrees Fahrenheit, where as compared to my baseline before, I had it that it was at 150 degrees Fahrenheit for the engine oil temperature. So the engine oil temperature is a little bit less, and I've been driving for the same amount of time as I did on the baseline, so it's not any kind of difference in like, oh, it's difference in temperature or anything like that. No, it's the same kind of amount of time driven, same temperature, everything is about the same. So kind of interesting that I'm seeing a difference in the actual engine oil temperature that's a little bit less. So that's actually showing that there is some improvement in regards to at least the engine oil temperature compared to the baseline where there isn't any. I would say that this is showing some bit of improvement in regards to engine temperatures and such, reduction in engine temperature. And I think is it worth it? It depends on what you're doing with your C8 Corvette. I think for the normal person, probably is not going to make any kind of real difference, but for the person that drives their C8 a lot, drives it in maybe hotter weather and stuff like that, it might actually make a difference. Or if they're even seeing like track day duty kind of deal, I would say that it might see a bit of a difference in that regards. Now I know there's options out there that you can get a little bit more improved airflow, because there's no doubt that there's improved airflow happening by using these air ducts, whether it's like a clear air duct that doesn't have a mesh, like a metal one, the 3D printed plastic ones like the one I have, that's the XL version. I think there's a bit of a give and take in regards to how much improvement of airflow you get if you have one that doesn't have a mesh, that's just clear. That doesn't have a mesh, that is just an opening slot, those are going to be the most efficient. And then you're going to have ones that are mesh, like the one I have on, that are going to be a little bit less efficient. For me, I think it's a compromise between trying to get the best airflow possible and having it that it protects that opening there if you're going to actually add more air into the engine bay. I don't personally like having it that it's an open slot there. There's just too much risk of just having some kind of rock or something like that get pinged into that deflector and then just go straight into your engine bay. I'd rather not, if I'm traveling 70, 80 miles an hour, that I have a rock go through there and potentially damage my engine bay because I have that deflector there. So I like the fact that mine has a mesh, could give a little bit of protection from any kind of rock debris, but still allow some of that airflow to go through. So if I'm going to be choosing one personally for my C8 Corvette, it'd probably be one that has a mesh like this one from dynamicducts.com, where I'm getting a little bit of better improvement of airflow, but at the same time I'm also protecting that engine bay from any kind of random rock debris or whatnot. So take from it what you will. It means like there's definitely options there that are going to be a little bit more flow efficient. but I think this is a good compromise between, like, especially this XL version that gives a little bit of a wider gap to capture more air. But in any case, would I recommend this piece? I think in certain aspects, yes, I would recommend it. If you're looking for those extra detailed type pieces to, you know, lower the engine temperature and such, I think it makes a bit of a difference. But yeah, if you are interested in this part, I think it does have its little bit of merits. For the price, it's a little bit high on price as compared to maybe some other options out there that might be actually a little bit cheaper. But again, that mesh, having that protective mesh, I think is the deal maker for me personally. Having that extra little bit of airflow, but at the same time having it being protected from rocks and such. So I hope that information has been informative, and I think that's going to kind of wrap up today's video. So if you like this video, please check out any of my other videos, and we'll see you next time. So take care, guys.